All right, so on your next clean piece of notebook paper, good. I already see some first and last names. I already see some dates, August 18th. On the far left side, let's put the War of 1812. That's what we put in our planners. Let's remind ourselves in our spot, the War of 1812. And again, I will get on my soapbox today. I am going to breathe all over you. I'm going to be so red, white, and blue patriotic during this class. Things might get thrown. I may stomp. I will probably get goosebumps like I did the first time because I love my country, and this is like oozing America. I've asked you to not do that, okay? First thing I want to do is see what we remember from yesterday. So let's go here. It said yesterday on the power trip, students will be able to understand the ideas and beliefs of Jefferson. He kind of had 3 ideas and 3 beliefs. Who can name one? Yeah.
He wanted the United States to be like a citizen, community of like civilized farmers.
Good. He wanted a small nation primarily made up of farmers.
One thing he didn't want was part of that community was as many workers and army members.
Good. He wanted to cut the number of federal workers, government workers, and he wanted to cut the size of our military. And the last one?
He wanted a small national government.
You guys nailed it. First hour kind of struggled. Maybe it was the morning for you guys nailed it. Small government, a nation of farmers, and reduce the number of government workers, reduce the size of the military. Let's look at 2. Wow. Let's look at 2. What's judicial review? Yeah?
That means the Supreme Court has the final say.
Supreme Court has the final say. So if a court case makes it all the way to the Supreme Court, whatever they decide it's done. Who invented judicial review? Command and control?
George Washington.
Not George Washington. Sonia?
John Adams.
Adams did it. Very good. Number 3, what did President Jefferson do that was totally not Democratic Republican-like? Yeah?
He bought the land of the Louisiana Purchase.
Good. He purchased purchased land illegally for how much?
$15 million.
For $15 million. From who? Paris, France. Paris is a city. He bought it from France. And how many states did the Louisiana Purchase give us? How many brand new states? We should have put it in our column. Spence? 13 new states added to the United States, okay? Awesome. Command and Control, will you take us to today? And the full view, por favor. All right. So underneath, on the far left side, you have the War of 1812. Underneath that, go ahead and put my title today. I called today, and it's nothing profound. It's just what I thought of when I was reviewing this lesson. I called it Big Decisions Are Always Controversial. Okay? Sometimes you make big decisions, and are you going to please everyone with that decision? It's impossible. President Obama, does he make decisions that every single person? No. Does Ms. Hoffman make a decision that every single person? If you try to please every single person in life, you're going to be stressed out, and it's not going to be a very fun life. You do your best, you think about it, you make the best decision you can, and you go with it. If you have to change along the way, you change along the way, but go with what you think the best decision. Don't try to please every single person. It's a waste of time. It's not happening. Okay, so kind of one goal today. It says, I want you to be able to formulate a strong opinion. Opinions are good. You need to have opinions about things. But you can't just say, yeah, I like that. Or I'll ask my son. I'll say, no, why do you keep scaring Zoe in the hall? We have a Fleegle rule of no scaring the daylights out of your sister. Why do you do that? Because that's not a good reason, is it? Because, so one goal today. Form an opinion with a good reason. We don't have to agree with your opinion. It's your opinion. You're not going to please everyone, but just have a good reason for your opinion, okay? A good reason as whether or not we should have joined in the War of 1812. There's a lot of controversy with this one. There's a lot of controversy with every war. Should we go? Should we not go? Does that country need help? Should we just stay home? I need you to form an opinion on should we have been in the War of 1812. Ready? Let's start formulating an opinion. Here we go. For those of you who are looking in the book, that's why they're open. That's on 116. And I'm getting all this information from P1, paragraph 1. If you just want to read your own paragraph 1, you can. If you want to read my notes, you can. If I go a little fast, you know to write down paragraph 1, and you can go back and check in your book later. Here we go. It said the Americans began to call and demand for a plan of war due to the British interfering with American trading. I told you before we got our homework logs out that the revolution is over. The Americans have defeated the British. Kind of. We're still having problems with them even after all that. It says the British are interfering with American trading. Does anyone have a prediction? I don't think you know why, but does anyone have a prediction on why the British, who've lost the Revolutionary War supposedly, why are they still causing command and control?
To get back at America.
To get back at them? Okay, I think that's a decent guess.
To try and take over again.
To try and take over again? I think you're both right. One more?
Or to get more land.
To get the land maybe back? Okay. My opinion, my guess is that British, you got to remember at this time, are the biggest, baddest, wealthiest military in the whole world. And when they lose a war, how's that gonna make them feel? Not pretty. So I think they're like not willing to give up yet, and they're going to start another little problem. Okay, that's the War of 1812. So they're interfering with American trading. Letter A, it gets worse. On top of interfering with our trade, British Navy ships begin kidnapping U.S. sailors. The war's supposed to be over. We beat them fair and square. But the British aren't giving up. Their reputation's on the line. Other countries around, oh, did you hear that Britain lost to the Americans? And the Americans are kind of pathetic. Oh, did you hear what happened to the British? Did you hear? The British don't want this reputation. They have the reputation of being the biggest, baddest. So they're not giving up. Interfering with trading. Letter A, beginning to kidnap U.S. sailors. B, gets worse. Britain also pledged their support to a Native American named Tecumseh, who was uniting Native American tribes against white settlers. So I'm going to go over here to our map. You won't be able to see this on the video, but what's the name of this territory over here? We learned this in another lesson. What's the name of this territory?
Northwest Territory.
Northwest Territory. Remember, we kind of compared it to a gang fight. Who's in the Northwest Territory that really kind of shouldn't be?
British.
The British. Remember, we put the B's? British are here. Why? The revolution is over. We beat you. Now, what's it say here? It says Britain also pledges support to Tecumseh, who is uniting Native American tribes. The British are helping the Native Americans basically fight against white settlers. The revolution is supposed to be over. So we have problems coming from this direction. And let's look at letter A. Don't forget about letter A. British Navy ships are kidnapping U.S. sailors. So out here in the ocean, what do we have? British soldiers. Is the revolution really over? Remember today's objective. Should we be fighting in this war? Is it something that we should let it go, in the words of Elsa, or is it something worth fighting for? Okay, start forming your opinion. Any questions on this slide? We get it? The British are causing more problems, right? Just when you thought the problem was solved, here they come again. We're in paragraph 2 if you're following along in the book now. It says Tecumseh and the Native Americans find safety with the British in Canada. They know that they can move to Canada with the British, and Canada's going to let them hide out in there. What's the problem with that? Well, here's the obvious answer. Canada's really close to the United States. They can come down into the United States and attack all they want. And then they can always go hide back up in Canada. Because Canada's going to protect them. Yikes. The Revolution Part 2. Tecumseh's Native Americans find safety with the British in Canada, ultimately causing enough chaos, that word is not chaos, causing enough chaos that the United States declares war on Britain, again, in the War of 1812. So all that fighting in the Revolutionary War, all that bloodshed, all those taxes and stuff that we had to fight through with the British, and we beat them, we kind of have to go prove ourselves again. It's like beating, let's take this to sports. Let's say your team's not very good. And then somehow you defeat the #1 team in the league. It's a major, major upset. Like, oh, how did you do this? Okay? But then next week or 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, you have to play that team again. Can you do it again, or was the first time just luck? Was the first time a fluke? Prove yourself again. So when we're thinking of our objective today, is proving ourselves worth joining the war? Or is proving ourselves not worth it? What was one of the 3 problems when Washington became president? Americans didn't respect our own country, did they? Is this going to create respect for us? Foreign countries didn't respect us. Is this going to give us respect if we beat them again? Or is it not worth it because there's going to be lives lost? Major decisions are always controversial. Any questions on this slide? Canada is kind of their hideout spot. Canada. I love their sausage too. Yeah.
How did they mainly get involved?
How did who mainly get involved?
Canada and the Native Americans, like after they were kidnapped?
Say that again.
How were they involved like before all of this happened?
And tell me who's they again? How were they involved? How were...
The British and Canada?
Canada is kind of an unestablished country at this time, so Britain's just moving up into there so that they are not being pursued by the Americans. Okay, I'll try to come answer that a little bit better. Yeah?
How is Canada protecting the British when Canada, they're so peaceful?
They are today.
Yeah.
Back then, Canada's not established. Okay, here we go. So there's 2 pieces to this. 2 pieces to this. It says phase 1 of the War of 1812. There's 2 pieces to this in the War of 1812. Phase 1 is this basically. Britain is going to focus on fighting the French in Canada. So Britain, phase 1, is going to focus their attention on defeating the French in Canada. Remember our 2 political parties? One political party supported Britain. One political party supported the French. Phase 1, Britain is going to try to defeat the French in Canada. I'll pull this back up in a minute. I'll pull this back up. I want to go to this map larger. So here we are. Britain, I used as red, is pushing into Canada to get the French out. They want all of Canada to be just British so that they have that hideout spot. If they can get rid of the French, they have a great spot that they can hide out at, okay? What's that A say? It says, because the British focused their attention on the French first, the United States actually had a few smaller victories against the British. Nothing terribly significant, but here we are again. British forcing their way into Canada, and the United States had a few small wins, but the British knew that was going to happen. Their main goal was win Canada. Get the French out. Any questions on that? I'll give you another few seconds on this slide. Remember, this is paragraph 3. I think there's even an illustration in it. No, there's not, is there? Okay, this is paragraph 3. Phase 1, British defeat the French in Canada. Phase 2 is much worse. Here comes phase 2, kids. Watch this. We're in paragraph 4 if you're following on. Phase 2, War of 1812. After the British defeated the French in Canada, which is a mouthful to say, the British defeated the French in Canada. Now the British are going to focus their attention on the Americans. Now they have Canada to themselves. Now they have that perfect hideout spot. Here's what happens. I don't know if you've read A yet. I don't know if you've read B yet, but it's bad news. Let me go to the map real fast. I'll pull that back. That's some great drawing right there. Okay, so what has happened? We have phase 1. They moved, watch the red. Phase 1, they have moved into Canada. They've got Canada. Phase 2, now the British are moving into the United States to try and take care of them. Okay, remember, the revolution is over, right? Is this worth fighting for? Is this not worth fighting for? Let's look at what happened on letter A again. The British have conquered Washington, D.C. They have burned the Capitol building, and they have burned the President's mansion, which is the equivalent of the White House. It wasn't called the White House then, but they have burned the President's mansion, the White House. Can you imagine if another country took over our country's capital today? Nothing good about that. Our country is in shambles if our nation's capital gets taken over by another country today. Okay, letter A. British have conquered D.C. They've burned the Capitol building. They've burned the President's mansion, which is basically the White House. This is not an accident. I'll be back to this in a minute. When the British defeated the French in Canada, the British did not go attack Kentucky. They knew Kentucky wasn't a big deal. They did not go to Indiana. They did not go to, well, they know they're not going. They don't want to go there. The British went straight for the heart of America. They went to D.C. Because remember, if they can occupy this, what do they have floating out in there in the waters?
The ocean.
They're British ships who are kidnapping American sailors, right? They go straight for the heart of America. And the revolution's supposed to be over. Okay, let's go back to this. Letter B, it gets a little bit worse. It says the British also conquered the American fort called Fort McHenry in Baltimore, Maryland. Is this worth going to battle for again? Can we really beat them again? Or should we just kind of let it go? That's what we're forming our opinions on. British have conquered the American fort, Fort McHenry. We're getting ready to watch a video here for a few minutes. Fort McHenry was a fort, obviously, but it was not this huge military fort. But the British know that they want this location. See, it was during this fight at Fort McHenry that the Star-Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key. Okay? Oh, say can you see by the dawns of... I'm going to get ready to show you an awesome video. My first hour, they were stone quiet. Like, I'm going to get the goosebumps, and when that video's over, I'm going to start preaching America to you. Hopefully you can get some goosebumps and feel the patriotism come to you, and maybe you'll make a change every time you hear the Star-Spangled Banner from now on. For me, it's like I can't... I'm going to start my patriotism now. I can't tolerate it when that song's playing at a ball game, and they're like people out there by the food area, you know. They're not in the stadium really. They're out there getting the food, you know, and they're walking with their hot dog, but they can hear that song playing. It's like, no, I got this hot dog. I can't. Quit walking around with your hot dog and pay attention to the greatest song in the world for 1 minute. I don't know if you guys agree with that. Or they got their nachos and Put him down. Hold on. Do you hear the song? That's my opinion. You don't have to have that opinion, but I'm pretty patriotic, I think. Any questions on this slide? Phase 2, the British are moving into the United States. They are going right to the heart of it. Burnt, headed to the fort, and now we're getting something good out of it. Do you have a question? Kate?
No, I was just gonna ask if you would keep this slide up.
I'll keep it up for a little bit more because I have something else. So there's a life lesson here. I like to bring life lessons into this. In America's darkest moment here. All right, this is bad. This is bad. We have an American who has been captured prisoner by the British in their darkest moment when his life could have ended at any point. What did he do with it? What did he do in that dark moment? He wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. We all have dark moments. We all have bad things that we're not proud of. I have bad things that I'm not proud of. We all have done things like, oh man, I really wish I wouldn't have done. What are you going to do with that situation? Are you going to do something like he did and find a bright spot about it? Am I going to find something I can do to maybe fix the problem? We all have that capability. Question?
Was Francis Scott Key, was he, what's it called? The pilot, no, the captain?
He was basically, you know, on the video comes out, he was a lawyer, but the Americans sent him from their ship over to the British ship to see if they could come up with some type of trade. We'll give you your prisoners back if you give us our prisoners back. And originally the British said, yeah, let's do it. But then the next day, the British kind of changed their mind and said, you know what? We thought about it. We don't really want to do that prisoner swap. Until you see that fort over there, Fort McHenry, you see that American flag? When you put that American flag down, then we'll do the prisoner swap. As we said, that's a no-go. The flag stays up. Oh, I'm starting to feel it right there on my tricep. The flag stays up. And wait till you hear what the prisoners said. The prisoners who are on board of that British ship, every hour they're saying, is the flag still up? They can hear the booms. They can hear the firing. It's been going. Is the flag still? All we care about is that flag still up? So there's that, and we're going to get to the video. Here's just a quick picture. Here's our President's Mansion, a.k.a. the White House, just not called that at the time. I can't even imagine to turn on CNN one day or next year or whatever and to see that. I don't think there's any way possible that ever happens in my lifetime. But yet, we're talking the British, a foreign country, has our nation's capital under control. Yikes. The revolution's over, right? Should we be fighting this? Should we not be fighting this? Rhetorical. There's what the President's Mansion originally looked like, and then you can kind of see it. It took a new shape, and then it would be called the White House. Okay? Here we're going to get into this scene here. This is Fort McHenry. You can see here the flag is still waving. This is the picture. This is the inspiration for Francis Scott Key to write what I think is one of the best songs in the whole world, the Star-Spangled Banner. Okay, Command and Control, will you go ahead and pull up that video? You have to write nothing but please. It's a great video. It's like 10 or 11 minutes long. It's a little lengthy. Phenomenal video. Give us some volume there, brother. $11 minutes. We're going to stop it at about 7.
There was a lawyer once. His name was Francis Scott Key. He penned a song that I'm sure you're aware of. You've seen it. It's in most hymnals throughout our churches. It's called the National Anthem. It is our song as an American. We go, however, to a ball game. We stand in our church services and we sing the words of that song, and they float over our minds and our lips, and we don't even realize what we're singing. Most of us have memorized it as a child, but we've never really thought about what it means. Let me tell you a story. Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore. The colonies were engaged in vicious conflict with the mother country, Britain. Because of this conflict and the protractedness of it, they had accumulated prisoners on both sides. The American colonies had prisoners and the British had prisoners. And the American government initiated a move. They went to the British and they said, let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners. They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. They were holding the American prisoners in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. And they said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange. On the appointed day in a rowboat, he went out to this boat and he negotiated with the British officials. And they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he'd been successful, went down below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity, men. And he said, men, I've got news for you tonight. You're free. He said, tonight I have negotiated successfully your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your chains. As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem. He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic after tonight. It won't matter. And Francis Scott Key said, what do you mean? He said, well, Mr. Key, he said, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag that you think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort Henry? He said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth. He said, how are you going to do that?
Either take the flag down, or that
He said,
fort
if you
will never
will
be on the
scan
face
the
of this earth
horizon
again.
of the sea
They're gonna
as he
destroy
looked,
it.
he could see hundreds of little dots. And he said, that's the entire British war fleet. He said, all of the gunpowder, all of the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. It will be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours. He said, the war's over. These men would be free anyway. He said, you can't shell that fort. He said, that's a large fort. He said, it's full of women and children. He says, it's predominantly not a military fort. They said, don't worry about it. They said, we've left them a way out. And he said, what's that? He said, do you see that flag way up on the rampart? He said, we have told them that if they will lower that flag, the shelling will stop immediately. And we'll know that they've surrendered, and you'll now be under British rule.
Tough decisions are
Francis Scott Key went down
controversial.
below and told the men what was about to happen. And they said, how many ships? He said, hundreds. The ships got closer. Francis Scott Key went back up on top and he said, men, I'll shout down to you what's going on as we watch. As twilight began to fall, and as the haze hung over the ocean as it does at sunset, suddenly the British war fleet unleashed. He says the sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there were no reliefs. He said it was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. He said suddenly the sky, although dark, was suddenly lit. And he says from down below, all he could hear the men, the prisoners, saying was, tell us where the flag is. What have they done with the flag? Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into the shelling, every time the bomb would explode and it would be close to the flag, they could see the flag in the illuminated red glare of that bomb, and Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, it's still up. It's not down. The admiral came and he said, your people are insane. He said, what's the matter with them? He said, don't they understand this is an impossible situation? Francis Scott Key said he remembered what George Washington had said. He said the thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees. The admiral said, we have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down. He said, we don't understand something. Our reconnaissance tells us that that flag has been hit directly again and again and again, and yet it's still flying. We don't understand that. But he said, now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point. Francis Scott Key said the barrage was unmerciful. all that he could hear was the men down below praying. The prayer, God, keep that flag flying where we last saw it. Sunrise came. He said there was a heavy mist hanging over the land, but the rampart was tall enough. There stood the flag, completely nondescript, in shreds. The flagpole itself was at a crazy angle, but the flag was still at the top. Francis Scott Key went aboard and immediately went into Fort Henry to see what had happened. And what he found had happened was that that flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. And when it had fallen, but men, fathers, who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up humanly until they died. Their bodies were removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what held that flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies. He penned the song, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, or the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet fly and wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The debt was demanded, the price it was paid."
Okay. Will you take us back to the lesson? Okay, so I think that video is really, really cool. And every time there's a problem in the United States, in the world, the United States shows up a lot of the time. And a lot of the time it's controversial. Oh, we shouldn't send our troops. Oh, we should. It doesn't matter what we personally think about it. They go willingly, and they go because they're told to go. And every time the goal was to do what? Keep the flag up, no matter where if they're in Afghanistan. Keep the flag up. Let it be recognized. If they go to Iran or wherever they go, the flag stays up. Okay? That's why hopefully maybe your parents or you've heard around, don't ever let the United States flag touch the ground. Right? We don't let our flag touch the ground. They didn't let the flag touch the ground. And I knew, oh, sorry, come on. These guys were being bombarded by the best military in the world. Their flag, don't let a flag touch the ground. Our song is precious and one of the best national anthems in the world. Take pride in it. When you hear the song going on at a football game, at a concert, wherever, just stop what you're doing for like 1 minute. Okay? Will you take us to the next video? And I want to give you an example here. The next slide over. Yep, go ahead and enlarge it. Don't start it yet. If this man here, who's not from the United States, he's from Jamaica, he's one of the best runners in the world, okay? This lady's interviewing him, and I think she's French, so we're not going to understand, but basically you can tell she wants to interview him about how great he is. And he could stop and say, yeah, here's how great I am, and answer all the questions. Here's how many medals I won. Me, selfish, selfish, selfish. But this man doesn't even live in the United States. And watch what he does. Hit it.
Oh, lo que pocos consiguen. Amazing, incredible, awesome. We should invent new words to talk about you. Help us.
Well, I wouldn't say a new word. Lightning bolt is good enough for me. It was all about business today. I came out to defend my title, and that's what I did.
You came here to be a legend. You are already a legend.
For the interview, is it live?
Yeah, okay.
He said cut the
Last
interview.
dance.
National anthem.
Ah, sorry. Perdón, el himno nacional.
So again, it could have been all about him right there, but he didn't care because the national anthem's been, and it's not even his national anthem. Okay, we have the privilege of being in the greatest country in the world. Stop what you're doing when you hear the song. When we do pledge in the morning, stop what you're doing. That's only like 30 seconds. Okay? Every day we have soldiers, we have rescue people out there making sure our flag stays up to protect us. Stop what you're, it's not important. A gold medalist stopped an interview and couldn't care. We can stop talking to our friend for 30 seconds. Okay? Let's finish this and then we're going to take a 2-minute break. I do have one more slide. Oh, I got to turn this on. Okay, I'm going to skip. This is our last slide, and then we're going to really start forming your opinion on this. It says, to most historians, the War of 1812 ended with no clear winner. To most historians. To some people, we clearly won. Our flag stayed up again against the biggest, baddest military world. Now, here's why most historians say this, because it says no land changed side. Great Britain didn't get bigger. The United States didn't get bigger. It says here, trade problems still remain the same. Nothing really changed, but our flag didn't go down again. So was it worth it? Or was it not worth it? Because clearly no land change side. We still have issues with Britain. Did we really get anything out of it? Rhetorical. Just want you to start forming your opinion with a good reason. Was it worth those lives being lost again? For some, like, no. War for me is like, I don't ever want a life lost. For some, it's like, yeah, it's worth it. Or we might not have had our freedom. The flag stayed up. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of forming our opinion. I'm going to give you like a 2-minute break here in a second. I'm going to keep this up. Give you like a 2-minute break, and then we're going to go to our, what's that word I used?
Interactive.
Interactive part. And we've got like 6 or 7 guest speakers, kind of. And they're going to help us form our opinion, okay? So let's go 2 minutes. Keep your spirals out. You can probably close your books, but keep your spirals out. All right, so here's what we got. We're going to get to our interactive, I keep wanting to say animated, our interactive part of this. In your spirals, I want you to do this. I've got a piece of paper drawn over here. I want you to do this. I want you to put a section on the far left that says name. Write name, don't put your name, just write name. Scoot over just a little bit, and then you're going to write the word for or against. For or against. And then scoot over a little bit more and write why. Remember, we have to have a reason to our opinion. These people that we're going to listen to, they're going to have a reason for their opinion. Okay? So we have these 3, 6, 8 people. Obviously, they're computer generated, but these are the opinions. These are real people from this time period. Some of them believe, yes, we should have gone into the War of 1812. It was totally worth it. Some of them are going to say no. Okay, so we're going to write down their name. We're going to write down, are they for or against it? And then they're going to give you a whole bunch of reasons. But just pick one reason why and write it in your journal, okay? They may not give their answer if they're for or against until the middle of their speech. It might be at the end of the speech. At the beginning, you're really going to have to pay attention. Okay? Let's go with you, madam. Pick a person. Who do you want to do first?
Francis Scott.
All right, here we go. Pay attention.
My name is Francis Scott Key. I have a large estate in central Maryland and a nice home and law practice in Georgetown, just outside of Washington, D.C. I am a Democratic Republican like my friend John Randolph of Virginia. Our president and our party support a declaration of war, but I oppose it.
He opposes it, so
I
he's
oppose
against.
war with Great Britain on the religious principle that human life is sacred.
Now find one
Sometimes
reason
war
why.
may be necessary. I agree that we had to fight to win our independence years ago during the Revolution. But most wars have been the scourge of mankind throughout history. They bring nothing but death, suffering, and destruction. I love my country, and I despise what the British are doing in seizing our ships and sailors. And many of my friends are ready to enlist and fight. There is talk of invading and conquering the British colonies of Canada. This is wrong. I shall not fight the poor, unoffending Canadians. Although a British colony, they are not responsible for the wrongdoings of the British government.
Go ahead.
To declare war, to conquer...
Good. So clearly, we should, on our paper, we should have Francis Scott Key written under the name. For or against, he clearly said he opposes war, and he gave a few reasons why. Can anyone share like maybe one? He said like two.
Because it says human life is sacred and no one should get killed.
Human life is sacred. Did you have another one?
I was just gonna
Another one he mentioned was that he feels like no way should we get Canada into this situation. Okay, no way should we bring Canada into this war. Did you have one?
Oh, no.
Okay, so there's a few. Just pick one. Let's go to Ian. Ian, who do you want to hear from?
George Roberts.
George Roberts. So everyone write in George Roberts, and let's
My
see what
name
he says.
is George Roberts. My family and I are from Baltimore. I am a sailor. Being a sailor is one of the few jobs open to a free man of color. I love the freedom of sailing out on rolling oceans. But that freedom is disappearing. The British are stopping our ships to search for their sailors who have deserted. They also search our vessels for goods they think might help the French in their war against Great Britain. The problem is that they have also seized American citizens. They call this impressment and claim it as their right. Tyrants and bullies claim such rights. It makes me angry that we have continued to endure this as a nation. Thousands of sailors and hundreds of ships have been seized by the British. How long will we let this continue? I worry that one day the British will stop a ship I am on and kidnap me, because that's what impressment really means. The kidnapping of Americans for service in the Royal Navy. Is impressment not slavery by another name? Just as wicked slave catchers kidnap freemen and sell them into bondage, the British steal sailors from American ships. Torn from their country and families, these poor men suffer unspeakable abuses at the hands of British officers. Like the cruel plantation master, British captains deny us liberty and lash our backs if we refuse to work. Can the United States be truly free and independent if it cannot protect its ships and sailors from foreign powers? If our nation will stand up now and fight for free trade and sailors' rights, maybe one day it will stand up again for freedom and rights for all the people living in the United States.
Okay, go ahead and hit a command and control. So, for the War of 1812, and again, they're giving us some reasons whether you agree with them or not, but I'm going to ask at the end here, should we have fought this war, should we have not, and what's your reason, okay? Let's go to a pretty important guy. Don't click it yet. Give us time to write it. Let's go to President Madison. Write down President Madison. Let's see what the president has to say. Are you leaning more, yes, we should have fought, or no, we should have? All right, command and control. I think we're ready.
My name is James Madison. As president of this young republic, these 18 United States, I believe that war with Great Britain is unavoidable.
Unavoidable. It's going
For
to
over
have to
10
happen.
years, the British have disrespected the American flag on the high seas by stopping American vessels in order to search them for suspected deserters from the Royal Navy. Under this pretext, thousands of American citizens, our own people, under the safeguard of public law and of their national flag, have been torn from their country and forced to serve the British nation. We have repeatedly told the British government that this must stop, that it was unlawful, and that we would take action to defend the honor of American citizenship. The British ignored us. British warships hover off our coasts. They harass American merchant ships that sail in and out of our seaports. In some cases, they have taken ships laden with cargoes without compensating our merchants. Why does Great Britain do this? Simply,
he gave us plenty of reasons on why he was all for us fighting in the War of 1812. Who got one of them? Yeah?
Unavoidable.
Okay, but what's one reason?
Oh, because they keep stealing the cargo.
Stealing cargo. Chase, you got one?
Because America told Britain many times that we would fight back.
We've warned them. Leave us alone or we're fighting back.
They disrespected our flag.
Disrespected us. Kind of harassing, just keeping their boats out there by the we can see their boat, just kind of harassing and teasing us. Like, we've got to send a message again. Let's go to Speedy. You pick one.
What?
Who do you want?
John Bradford.
Okay, give us a second. Oh,
My name is John Bradford.
John Bradford is the name. John Bradford. Bradford. Hit it, kid.
And I am 36 years old, the same age as the United States. I own a shipping business in Salem, Massachusetts, and I have vessels in Boston and New Bedford. For the past 10 years, congressmen from the South and West have been calling for war with Great Britain. Many people in New England, like me, have prospered by trading with the British, and our businesses depend upon this commerce to continue. Our farmers' grain, carried across the Atlantic in ships like the ones I own, feed Britain's army in Europe. Great Britain and France are the two most powerful countries in the world, and are at war with one another. Between the two, I favor the British. The British are our greatest trading partner, and under Napoleon, the French cannot be trusted. Napoleon's armies have invaded and brought ruin over much of Europe. Great Britain and Russia are the only countries standing in Napoleon's way. To declare war against the British would indirectly help the French. We do not want to be caught up in a European war. I admit, the seizure of our sailors and ships is unfortunate, but they take only our ships bound for France, and those ship owners should know better and avoid trading with Napoleon. They say the British impress or steal our sailors, but this is nothing compared to how many men will be killed if we declared war. When the war in Europe is over, the British will no longer see the need to impress our sailors, so why fight a useless war now? A war in Great Britain would also mean economic ruin and depression for New England, and maybe the whole country. We are not ready for war.
Okay, so where'd he go? Against the War of 1812, he gave a few reasons on why he thought this was a terrible idea for the Americans. Let's go to, I believe, let's try her. Let's get a female perspective here. They're usually much clearer and make more sense than us men. Let's go with Margaret Elliott.
My name is Margaret Elliott, and I live with my family in Ohio. Living here or any western state brings one uncomfortably close to Indians. There's a lot of mistrust, fear, anger on both sides. Last year, my husband and I were in Piqua out in western Ohio when John Johnston, the Indian agent, held a council for peace with the Shawnee and Wyandot Indians. He said they told him that their intention was to remain at peace and to maintain a friendship with the United States. But since then, there have been killings on both sides, and also that battle at Tippecanoe Creek. I fear that Indian leaders like Tecumseh and his brother, the one they call the Prophet, are trying to promote war between the Indians and us settlers.
They are.
I also believe that some of our own territorial governors like William Henry Harrison are to blame. Harrison is ruthless. He has pressured Indian leaders to give up their lands at a penny or two an acre, and he sparked the battle along Tippecanoe Creek. My husband, like many settlers, view the Indians as merciless savages. They say the British are encouraging them to kill Americans and are actively providing them with food, guns, and ammunition. Lots of folks here on the frontier, including Mr. William Hull, the governor of the Michigan Territory, say that a war with Great Britain and an attack on Canada would help frontier settlers and the nation. I disagree.
Okay, so Margaret is against the War of 1812. We're going to do one more. We're going to go to Henry Clay down there on the bottom. He's kind of a big shot congressman from Kentucky. Henry Clay. What?
Why was she against?
Oh, she had a lot of. She thought that the against.
I thought it was for.
No, she's against. She did totally sound for.
She was talking way too fast.
Maybe we'll replay that one in a minute, okay? Let's go to Henry Clay. Hit it.
My name is Henry Clay. I'm from Kentucky and the youngest Speaker of the House of Representatives ever to be elected. People like me represent the youth and vigor that is making our country a great nation. Our country may be young and the future is bright if we have the courage to face it. The British are trying to keep our country down, and we must fight them. I have assembled a block of fellow representatives who are in favor of war with Great Britain, and I am doing everything I can to encourage Congress to strengthen the military in preparation for war. The most valuable treasure the United States has is its honor. Without honor, what do you have? Nothing. How can we live with ourselves if we allow Great Britain to steal our sailors, take our ships, and encourage the Indians to shoot our settlers? The British don't respect our flag. It means nothing to them. I say we stand up for that flag and make them respect it. What kind of nation allows its citizens to be kidnapped and forced into a foreign navy? What is the point of fighting a war for independence only to roll over and submit to the whims of bullies and tyrants?
Okay, so he was pretty adamant. He's clearly for the War of 1812. Gave a lot of the same reasons as the other guys. I'm ready when you are.
Can you see my little early night? What so proudly we gave at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets the bombs bursting in air, it moved through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, say,
Okay, then the last little bit, just remember that every day somewhere there's a flag, American flag standing up anywhere in the world, and there's people out there making sure that flag stays up, just like in the War of 1812, okay? That's all I've got. We got 2 minutes to totally pack up.